I read this article recently called "The Case Against Travel," and the subhead was, "It turns us into our worst version of ourselves while trying to think that we are at our best." This was in the New Yorker magazine by Agnes Cayard. I'm not going to go too much into the details, just use this as a jumping off point for this video. Today I want to talk about why we travel, or more specifically, why I travel. And I want to tell a story about my, I was going to say best travel experience, but definitely the most memorable travel experience. And I'm going to make the case for why I travel. First, a little introduction. My name is Jesse. Thank you for clicking on my video. I appreciate it. So, to sum up my feelings, I would say, if you don't go, you'll never know. And that's really been true in my travels. Basically, though, you guys can get whatever you want out of travel, right? A lot of people like, going to a resort, going on a cruise, hanging out by the pool, drinking rum drinks out of coconuts. All good. I have traveled, mostly on what you'd call the backpacker tour, whether I'm a young guy or even now in my 60s, strap on the backpack and go. Today, I want to talk about one trip. I could talk about so much, but one trip that really has stuck with me, definitely my most memorable trip, and really, what it has taught me and why I make the case for travel. By the way, I am videoing this in Zhongshan Park in Wuhan, China. For people who've been to China before, there's a Zhongshan Park in every city in China. Zhongshan is the Chinese name for Sun Yat-sen, the founders of the Republic of China after the revolution. Too much information. Yeah, I'm in China, but I am going to talk today about a trip I took to Cambodia in the year 2001. What's really memorable, I chose that country purposefully. Most people, when they think of Cambodia and travel, they want to see Angkor Wat, the wonderful temple complex. Half of it is Hindu, the other half is Buddhist. Really it's amazing. And if you want, well, let me put it this way, you should go. But I'm not going to talk about Angkor Wat, except tangentially in this video. I'm going to talk about my experiences that really opened my eyes and gave me lessons about, basically about how other people live. And to simplify it, I want to talk about three particular aspects. Number one was just how undeveloped the country was in 2001. The second, I want to talk about roads. And the third, I want to talk about a block of ice. So, let's get to it. When I went, the country was only open 3 years after just being a closed, terrible, a country with a horrible history. For those who don't know about Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge, they were, you can call them communists. They took over the country in 1975, and they basically, this is what they said, they wanted to go back to year zero. And what that resulted in was just the murder and abject killing of a fourth of their population, most of whom, were people who were educated, who had worked in, the developed society such as it was previously. Teachers, engineers, anybody with an education. Yeah, it's a terrible, terrible history. Maybe 1.5 million of their own people were just murdered. And the Khmer Rouge regime finally lost power in 1998. Shortly after, they opened the country, including to tourism. And when I got there in 2001, there wasn't much infrastructure there. I mean, in the entire country, there wasn't one bank, there wasn't one ATM. There weren't any McDonald's, weren't any KFCs, there weren't any 7-Elevens. It was just totally in between the destruction of the former society. It was once a French colony, and gorgeous French colonial architecture, especially in the country's capital in Phnom Penh. But these things were like, you look at them and they were like post-war, burnt-out colonial buildings. It was just gorgeous and sad and haunting and poor. And what did that tell me? Well, I kind of have to go to my second part about roads, and then I will, I'll let you know how I really learned and had my eyes opened. So the roads, this was just amazing. I got one of those, pack yourself into a van on Khao San Road in Bangkok tours. They drove us to the border near the Thai city of Trat, and then we walked across the border and then got back on the van, and we were going, if you did it today, I think it probably would be about a 2-hour drive to the beach town of Sihanouk. But there were no paved roads. No paved roads. And in addition to no paved roads, we had to go over 4 river crossings. So no paved roads, we're bouncing up and down. The driver said, it's a bouncing road, which is their sense of humor for pothole galore. The river crossings were wild. We would stop the van and just wait and see if we can get on the ferry, which was, it's not a ferry you'd imagine if I said the word ferry. Take a look. I'm going to put the picture I took of the ferry that left just before us. There were these, it was just basically a wooden raft that didn't look, quote unquote, seaworthy, but somehow we made it across 4 times. I misspoke a little. I didn't mean there were no paved roads in the entire country. I meant there were no roads on that trip from the Thai border to Sihanoukville. And because of that, what should be a 2-hour drive now took us 12 hours. Dancing roads, river crossings. Yeah, it was. And along the way, I saw a block of ice, which I will talk about in a few minutes. I just want to talk more about the roads first. So eventually, we went from Sihanoukville up to the capital, Phnom Penh, and later to Siem Reap, which is the town closest to Angkor Wat and the Angkor Wat temples. And as one does, we got my little van and we got a 3-day pass and hired a local tour guide. So the local tour guide, this, great Cambodian guy who spoke very little English, but just enough. And we were talking to him in the van. I asked him, what is the best thing about where you live? And he said, this road. What road? He was talking about the main street of Siem Reap, the one that, basically where all the newly sprouted hotels and hostels were. And it was paved. And he couldn't stop talking about how wonderful it was. People could get to market easier, to move goods around. It was really going to open up the area. You know, while I was thinking Angkor Wat, the Buddhist temples, the Hindu temples, the World Heritage Site that people travel all around the world to get to. And he's talking about a road. What did that tell me? That told me that what he was hoping for, what he was looking for in his life, perhaps for his country, was development, was emerging from this horrible poverty and violence over a generation or more that had just devastated his country. He was looking at the future. He was looking at commerce, being able to feed his family. That was number one on his mind, and that has stuck with me to this day. Oh, I forgot, when I was talking about underdeveloped and poverty, in Siem Reap there was also this brand new hospital. I mean, it wasn't like the most amazing looking hospital in the world, but it was brand new and it was great for the area. The only thing was, at that time, there were no doctors. I mean, seriously. There were 3 doctors in the region from, Phnom Penh north. 3 doctors for the entire country. And they would make their rounds, you know, spend a week here, spend a week here. At that moment, when we were in Siem Reap at Angkor Wat, it was an empty hospital. Not totally. There were patients, there were nurses, but no doctors. I mean, really, just to think about that, it boggles the mind as a first world person, and it really, it makes you understand about, you know, how fortunate some of us are and how unfortunate others are. Which brings me to my third memory, the block of ice. So when we were in that van from Thailand on the Dancing Road, we were going to a homestay at this family's house, and oh my God, it was just such an amazing experience because we were staying at one of those stilt houses where it's built up above the water. And oh, they stopped playing when I was going by. Sorry about that. It was one of those stilt houses built, you know, because of the monsoon rains and everything like that, flooding. And it had 2 rooms. I mean, basically it was just a flat, 1-level structure once you got up there. And there was 1 big room and then 1 smaller room, which included the kitchen. In the big room, there were all these bed mats just lined on the walls, and we learned that there were 35 people who lived there. 35 people who rolled out their bedrolls and went to sleep every night. Crazy. But before we got down there, on the road, I saw the most amazing sight. There were these 2 little kids. I'd say the boy was maybe 9 and the girl was maybe 10, and they were carrying between them like a hammock, like a burlap hammock, and in the middle of it was this huge block of ice. They had just bought it from the store, and it wasn't a store, it was like a stand on the side of the road, a stand with a freezer and a refrigerator, and that looked to be the only quote-unquote store that I'd noticed driving down there. So they were walking, and I didn't know how far they had to walk until they got home. It was, 90, 95 degrees. We were just all sweating in the van, but I couldn't imagine being out there walking with a block of ice to get home. And I was trying to figure out the calculation of, okay, how many minutes going at what rate of speed would it take for that block of ice to totally melt, drip by drip? Seemed like yeah. I started this video by talking about how travel has opened my eyes. And I think my experience in Cambodia, probably especially with the tour guide who was not talking about Angkor Wat, but talking about how wonderful the new paved road was, and then seeing those kids and understanding how important, well, important it was to get the ice home, but to see their conditions. Yeah, I mean, that's something that, you know, you can see in videos, you can see watching movies and documentaries, you can understand it from books, you can logically digest it, you can understand it, but seeing it, it's, at least to me, it was an entirely different, I guess, emotional, psychological feeling. I mean, we learn things by experience, but in this case, I was just an observer. And the experience, though, was seeing it in the flesh and then trying to make sense of it. One last thing before I end this video. Over the years, you know, eating street food in quote-unquote third world countries, underdeveloped countries, you know, you always think, am I going to get sick or what happens? And Cambodia, in Siem Reap, I'm assuming it was food poisoning. I had my worst experience. I mean, it was bad. I was in bed in my hostel for 3 days. It was, you know, it was one of those experiences where you think, am I gonna make it? I mean, it was just terrible. I mean, anybody who's had food poisoning, stomach problems, I really don't know how bad it was because there was no hospital to go to. They had sort of a nurse that came look at me and give me some medicine. Okay, my point. My point is, even though I had that experience, I still look back at Cambodia as my best trip. And it's for, you know, all the reasons I talked about earlier. And I will say this again, if you don't go, you'll never know. All right, and with that, I think I'm going to end my video. I really want to thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. If you like this video, please press the like button. Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear about your experiences. And finally, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, subscribe. All right, till next time, catch you later. Bye.